Welcome back to Red Recapped. Today's movie is Luther, The Fallen Son, released in 2023. There will be some spoilers in the following, so let's begin the film without further ado. At the start of the story, we meet Callum Aldrich, who works as a cleaner at a certain location. He receives a call from someone who blackmails him into leaking screenshots to his family and friends. Reluctantly, Callum goes to a designated place as instructed. Unfortunately, upon arriving, he discovers that there has been an accident there. Showing his intelligence, Callum calls the police to report the situation. However, the person pretending to be dead suddenly gets up, kidnaps Callum, and knocks him unconscious with a taser gun. DCI John Luther is assigned to the case. They find the body of Karis Jones, who went missing 7 years ago. Martin suspects that the body had been preserved on ice. Luther believes that Callum's presence at the scene wasn't a coincidence. Someone intentionally wanted him there to be kidnapped. He promises Callum's mother, Corinne, that he will find her son. Meanwhile, David Roby, a wealthy trader and serial killer who blackmails people for their dark secrets, becomes concerned about Luther's involvement. Roby uncovers the illegal acts Luther committed as a police officer, leading to his firing, prosecution, and imprisonment. Inmates at Hawksmoor Maximum Security Prison, some of whom are there because of Luther, attack him while he is taking a bath. Years later, Corinne receives a call from Callum's voice and is given a location to meet him. She arrives at a house, but it turns out to be vacant. However, when she enters a room, she discovers several dead bodies, including Callum's. Roby manipulates the parents of the other victims to come to the house, where a fire breaks out. Corinne miraculously survives and sees an unknown man staring at her from the window. This man has burned the dead bodies of their children. DCI Odette Raine takes over the case. During a meeting with her team, she reveals that the 8 victims were officially listed as missing until now. The killer must have known that the house was vacant. The earliest crime dates back 11 years, with the most recent occurring last year. Raine wonders who would have the resources, time, and space to carry out such heinous acts. The murders have been carefully planned and executed over several years, leaving behind a wealth of data to analyze. Raine believes that finding a commonality among the victims will lead them to the killer. Luther receives a letter with the number 65.8 written on it, which turns out to be a radio frequency. It contains a recording of Roby murdering Callum and blaming Luther for the deaths. Luther encounters Roby but fails to capture him. Luther finds himself trapped because he had previously put Roby in a cage. Meanwhile, Corinne visits Luther in prison and expresses her disappointment in his inability to find her son's killer. Unbeknownst to Corinne, Roby has brought her to prison. He pretends to console her and offers assistance. Later, Luther informs Raine about the broadcast and offers to help with the case. However, Raine rejects his help, claiming it is now her case. She instructs DS Archie Woodward, her subordinate, to confiscate Luther's phone. Luther contacts his former associate, McCabe, to help him escape from prison, and McCabe agrees. However, before they can act, officers arrive and take Luther's phone. Luther negotiates with prison guards to arrange his transfer that night. He plans for the prisoners to attack him, forcing the system to relocate him. He warns that if things go wrong, it could be deadly. Luther is prepared for any outcome. During the night, a prisoner attempts suicide in his cell, but the guards rush to his aid. Taking the opportunity, he beats them unconscious, fleeing with the key. The guards are complicit in Luther's escape plan. They unlock all the cells, causing chaos among the prisoners. Many of them want to kill Luther. They set fire to his cell and attempt to harm him, but Luther fights back to save himself. Seeing Luther's life in danger, the guards decide to transfer him. However, their car is intercepted on the way. McCabe comes to Luther's rescue at this point. Raine learns about Luther's escape and brings in a retired detective superintendent named Martin Schenk as a consultant. Schenk searches Luther's belongings and discovers a clue about his whereabouts. He informs Raine that the killer used an FM broadcast at a frequency of 65.8 FM. If they trace the source of the frequency, they will find Luther. Luther arrives at the location of the broadcast. After some intimidation, a man named Derek reveals that he was blackmailed by someone who recorded compromising videos of him. He received the transmitter via courier and was instructed to leave it running for 24 hours before disposing of it. He always received instructions via text message and never used the same phone for more than a day. The police arrive, but Luther manages to escape. We then see a place where people monitor others from all over the world, watching their phones, cameras, tablets, and home surveillance. They blackmail these people after discovering their secrets, forcing them to carry out certain tasks. Roby takes pleasure in killing these individuals, just as he blackmailed Callum at the beginning and lured him to the dead body. Martin provides Luther with Roby's location at Piccadilly Circus. Luther notices a man and a woman on the building rooftop with cameras around their necks, as if they are about to jump. Luther calls Roby from Derek's phone, and they confront each other there. Roby grabs a child and holds a knife to their neck, warning Luther that this is just the beginning and that Luther hasn't caught him yet. As Luther looks up, he sees the people Roby has blackmailed causing chaos by committing suicide, jumping from buildings and crashing cars. Taking advantage of the distraction, Roby manages to escape. Luther pursues him into the London Underground. But Roby escapes after a fight and kills an armed policeman. Roby contacts Raine's subordinate, DS Archie Woodward, and questions why he didn't inform Roby that Luther had escaped from prison. Woodward was unaware of Luther's escape. Roby then calls Kachimov and asks if he has prepared the place and the last livestock, referring to the kidnapped teenagers. He instructs Kachimov to bring them to his secret location. Martin calls Luther to check if he's okay. Luther tells Raine that everyone has something they don't want anyone else to know about, something they're ashamed of. It could be related to their sexuality, finances, or criminal activities. Luther believes the killer is exploiting people's secrets, blackmailing them, and making them come to him. He believes the fear of shame and exposure is more powerful than the fear of death. During their conversation, Luther's location is traced, and a team is sent to apprehend him. Later, Raine calls her daughter Anya and informs her that she might not be able to drive her the next day, suggesting she take a cab instead. Anya senses that someone is in her house. Roby kidnaps her. Luther meets with Corinne and informs her that he has seen the killer. He suspects that the killer knew something, possibly blackmailing Callum, which prompted Callum to meet him and give him money. Luther asks Corinne if she has met someone new since losing Callum, perhaps at the support group. Corinne mentions meeting Tommy, who also attended the support group and had lost his wife, for whom he was imprisoned. Luther suspects Tommy and points out that at least 5 families have been befriended by a man in his 40s, each claiming to have lost their wife in a house fire in Eccleston Square. Upon checking the records, Roby's information is revealed. Roby calls Raine and informs her that he has her daughter, Anya, and in order to save her, Luther must be killed. Raine contacts Luther to inform him that he was right about the killer infiltrating their lives and befriending them. She asks Luther to meet her, where she reveals that Roby has kidnapped her daughter. Raine suggests that Luther accompany her to secure Anya's release. Luther proposes that they work together on the case secretly. Reluctantly, Raine agrees to collaborate. They visit Roby's ex-wife, Georgette, and inform her about Anya's kidnapping. Georgette reveals that Roby owns a mansion in rural Norway. Luther contacts Martin and asks for one last favor. To rescue Anya, Luther and Raine set off for Norway. Roby contacts Archie and asks about Raine's whereabouts. Archie informs him that an alert has been placed on her passport and she is likely heading to Norway. Archie, blackmailed by Roby, is ordered to kill Georgette but is intercepted by Martin, who was sent by Luther to protect her. Luther anticipated that Roby might target Georgette because she knew the secret location. Hence, Martin was sent to safeguard her. However, Archie injects himself with poison and commits suicide. Luther and Raine arrive at Roby's mansion in rural Norway. Inside, they hear Anya crying and discover numerous dummy bodies hanging around. Although there is a girl present, she is not Anya. Luther enters a secret room, but Kachimov ambushes Raine, and Roby attacks Luther. Luther is then restrained to a chair. He learns that Roby tortures kidnapped victims and livestreams it as the Red Bunker to his followers, who bet on Luther's death during the livestream. This is how Roby makes money. Raine is brought in, and she finds Anya alive. Roby forces her to stab Luther, and she complies in order to save her daughter. Roby then instructs Luther to break Raine's knee. Luther refuses. Instead, he tries to persuade the audiences there. Luther reveals that Georgette has informed the police of the location, and they are on their way. Watching the torture of people is a crime, and the police will trace their IP addresses. This revelation terrifies the viewers, causing them to go offline. Luther fights and kills one of Roby's men, while Roby escapes and locks the door behind him. He then releases Raine from her restraints and exits the room. Shortly after, a fire starts in the room. Raine and Kachimov engage in a brutal fight. Roby tries to flee in his truck, but Luther manages to get inside as well. A fierce struggle ensues between them, and eventually, the truck crashes into a lake. Roby attempts to escape but becomes trapped and dies inside. Using Roby's phone, Luther unlocks the door, enabling Raine and Anya to escape the bunker. As Luther begins to lose consciousness, divers appear. Martin has brought them to the scene. In this way, Luther eliminates a psycho killer who needlessly took lives. Luther is arrested as an escaped prisoner, but the news of Callum's murderer's death brings joy to Corinne, who is grateful that Luther kept his promise. Back in London, Recovering from his injuries, Luther is approached by Cranfield, a senior official from MI5, who implies that he can offer Luther a job instead of sending him back to prison. That concludes the story. Thank you for watching.